Chapter 1, Part 2, The Church Below. I woke to knocking, not on the wall, not in my dream, on the door. 3 soft knocks. Then the lock turned. That sound had already become larger than the room. A door that locks from the outside does not need to shout. It teaches quietly. The room smelled the same as before. Cold wall, old blanket, bucket, stone, and me. Smoke still lived in my hair. My mouth tasted of blood. For one foolish breath, I forgot where I was. Then the door opened. The nun stood there with a cup of water and a piece of bread. Her veil was plain. Her face was tired. Her eyes were not soft exactly, but they did not look at me like I was livestock. That was enough to confuse me. "Drink," she said. I did not move. She set the cup on the floor. Then the bread. Then she stepped back. Not far. Far enough for a frightened child to choose. Small mercy, Miss Chacalis. Again, you will notice I keep naming it. That is because cruelty is easy to remember. Mercy must be guarded. I looked past her into the corridor. No daylight, no window. Only the lamp in the wall, burning with a small yellow flame. "Where is my familia?" I asked. The nun did not answer quickly. That told me more than words would have. "Drink," she said again. "I want to go home." Her face changed, only a little. There is no home to go back to. I stood too fast. The room tilted. I grabbed the wall. No. She did not step toward me. She let the word hit me and fall. "No," I said again, but quieter. Children do that when the world does not move for them. They say the same word softer, as if maybe grief only needs to learn how to ask properly. The nun lowered her eyes. "My name is Sorines." I hated her name, not because it was ugly, because she had one. Because she could say it. Because nobody had taken it from her and locked it behind the door. "Luciano," she said. I looked at her. "You will listen to me if you want to live." That was my first lesson below the church. Not prayer, not forgiveness, survival. The days below the church did not begin like torture. That is important. Cruelty that belongs to one man may rush. Cruelty that belongs to a place has a schedule. Morning, water, kneel, prayer, bread, sweep, carry, silence. Again, again, again. You would think evil announces itself. It does not. Most evil enters the room with keys, rules, and someone else's permission. Sorines took me from the room after I drank. The corridor was narrow. The stones sweated. The air tasted old. At the end, 3 other children stood against the wall. A girl a little older than me. A boy younger. another boy with a scar at his mouth. None of them spoke. The girl looked at me once, then looked at my hands, then at the floor. That was how children introduced themselves below the church. Not with names, with warnings. Sor Ines handed me a small broom. Do not sweep near the stair unless I tell you. I looked at the stair. Why? Because people come down from there. Who? People you should not make curious. The girl beside me whispered under her breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sor Ines looked at her. Marisol. The girl stopped counting. The younger boy covered his ears with both hands, as if the room had grown too loud. It had not. Some children hear danger before sound arrives. Mateo, Sor Ines said. The boy lowered one hand. Not both. The boy with the scar did nothing. Sor Ines did not say his name. Maybe she did not know it. Maybe he had refused to give it. Maybe he had once given it and learned what men can do with a thing that belongs to you. I did not ask. That was another lesson. Below the church, questions were not free. We swept the corridor. We carried water from a stone basin. We emptied buckets. We scraped candle wax from trays brought down from above. We folded rough linen. We cleaned soot from little lamps. We gathered dead candle stubs in a wooden bowl. Sometimes we polished simple metal holders until our fingers smelled like old brass. Sometimes sacks were brought down before dawn. Bread, charcoal, rags, oil. Sometimes wrapped things we were told not to touch. Once I saw red on cloth. Not much. Enough. No one explained it. That was the way of that place. Things appeared. Children carried them. Adults pretended children did not have eyes. Above us, the church lived. That was the part that wounded me most. It was not a ruin. It was not a cave. It was not some forgotten pit where wicked men hid from God. No. The church above us breathed every day. Bells rang. Feet crossed the stone. Women whispered prayers. Old men coughed into their sleeves. Babies cried. Candles were lit for the dead. And beneath all of that, children learned not to cough too loudly. People came to God through one door. Devils used the other. The first day, I waited. I told myself someone would come. A neighbor, a rider, a servant from the house, a friend of my father, a soldier, someone. Hope is cruelest when it has a familiar face. By the second day, waiting had become a shape inside me. By the third, I knew the sound of Father Tomas's sandals before he reached the bottom step. Soft, soft, soft. I hated that sound. He came below only when he needed to be seen obeying someone more powerful. That was what I understood later. At the time, I only knew that the corridor tightened whenever he appeared. Even Sorines changed. Not much. Enough. Eyes down, she would say. And every child obeyed. Father Tomas had soft hands, a soft voice, a soft mouth. Some men make softness uglier than violence. He would walk through the corridor, pretending not to look at us. But his not looking touched more than a stare. Once, he stopped near me. "Ballesteros," he said. My broom froze. He smiled. "Your father caused much trouble." I did not know what that meant. I still do not know if he wanted me to ask. I did not. Sorines stepped between us with a tray of candle stubs. "The boy has work." Father Tomas looked at her, then at me. Then he moved on. That night, she came to my room with bread. Not much. More than the others had received. I knew because children know unfairness even when it feeds them. "I'd have," she said. "Why?" "Because hunger makes children loud." He held the bread in both hands. Why did he say my father caused trouble? Sorines looked toward the door, then back at me. "Do not carry adult words in your mouth." What does Veirath mean? The room went still. Her face emptied. That frightened me more than anger would have. "Where did you hear that?" "The man with the golden eyes." She closed her eyes, only for a moment. When she opened them, she was Sorines again. Tired, careful, alive because caution had become part of her bones. "If you hear that word again," she said, "you say nothing." "What does it mean?" "It means you say nothing." Then she left. On the fourth morning, the door opened before the bell. That was wrong. Usually the lock turned. The door opened. Someone looked in. Then the door closed again. That was the rhythm. By then, even terror had a schedule. But this time, the door stayed open too long. I lay still on the cot, listening. A shape stood in the doorway. For a moment, it did not enter. Then the door closed. From the inside, soft footsteps crossed the room. Soft, soft, soft. I sat up so fast my back struck the wall. Father Tomas stood near the door with a candle in one hand and a small leather pouch in the other. His face looked different in the flame. Not holy. Afraid. That frightened me more. A cruel man is simple. A frightened man with God in his mouth can become anything. "Poor child," he whispered. I pulled my hand close to my chest. "What are you doing?" He did not answer. He set the candle on the little desk. Then he opened the pouch. Inside was a rosary, a folded strip of red cloth, a small bottle of oil, and a little knife with a silver handle. My breath stopped. Father Tomas crossed himself. Once, twice, too fast, as if heaven needed to be reminded where he was. "They have put a word inside you," he said. I shook my head. "I don't know anything." "You know enough to be claimed. He dipped his thumb in the oil and touched it to his own forehead. Then he whispered something in Latin. I did not understand the words, but I understood the knife. I stood. He stepped between me and the door. Sit. I did not. His voice broke. Sit down, Luciano. Hearing my name in his mouth made the room feel colder. What are you doing? I asked again. His eyes filled with something that looked almost like pity. Almost. Estoy tratando de salvarte el alma, hijo. I am trying to save your soul, child. He said it gently. That was worse. Then he reached for my hand. I pulled away. He caught my wrist. Not hard enough to break it. Hard enough to tell me choice had left the room. No, I said. Before they take you completely, he whispered. There must still be a mark God can recognize. I screamed then. Not words, just fear. Father Tomas flinched and looked toward the door. Above us, somewhere in the church, a bell began to ring. Too early, too hard. His face changed. He knew time had run out. He pressed my hand against the desk and lifted the little knife. Forgive me, he whispered. The blade had not touched me yet, but I felt its cold before it arrived. Then the door broke inward. Not opened. Broke. Wood struck stone. Father Tomas turned, still holding my wrist. The golden-eyed man stood in the doorway. White hat, black coat, silver chain across his vest. He was smiling. That smile was not comfort. It was ownership. Father Tomas released me. Cristo te reprende, he whispered. Christ rebukes you. The golden-eyed man tilted his head. Does he? Father Tomas lifted the crucifix from his neck with shaking fingers. En el nombre de Dios. In the name of God, the golden-eyed man repeated softly. Then he stepped into the room. The candle flame bent away from him. Look around you, Padre. His voice stayed calm. That made it worse. God does not keep office in these walls. Father Tomas backed toward the desk. I was trying to save him. No. The golden-eyed man looked at the knife, then at me, then back at the priest. You were trying to mark what is not yours. Father Tomas raised the crucifix between them. The golden-eyed man looked at it, then at him. Wrong key. His hand moved. There was a small sound. Clean. Final. Father Tomas fell beside the desk. No sermon. No confession. No last prayer. Just wait. I stayed against the wall, shaking. The golden-eyed man picked up the little knife and looked at the silver handle. Then he placed it on the desk with care. Too much care. That was how I knew he was angry. Not loud. Not human. Angry the way cold iron is angry. He adjusted the silver chain across his vest and looked down at me. Did he cut you? I could not answer. He stepped closer. I pulled my hand behind my back. For the first time, his smile faded. Good. Then he looked at the priest. Greedy little shepherd. The bells above us rang harder. Boots struck stone. Men shouted. The church was waking. Not for prayer, for judgment. The golden-eyed man turned toward the sound. For the first time, his smile became useful. Mexico has arrived. A moment later, Sorines rushed into the doorway. She stopped when she saw the body. Fear crossed her face first, then understanding, then something almost like relief, quickly buried. The Republican patrol, she said. They are searching the church. Yes. Good. Sorines stared at him. Good. The golden-eyed man stepped past her. Let them find a dead priest in a locked room beneath an altar, holding a knife over a missing child. Men like him are easy for history to believe. He paused at the doorway and looked back at me. Move the children. Then he was gone. Sorines stood frozen for one breath. Only one. Then she came to me, took my face in both hands and whispered, "Listen to me. Do not run to the soldiers." I stared at her. They can help. No. They are soldiers. Yes. Then they can help. Her hands tightened on my face. Not cruelly. Urgently. Not this outside. I did not understand. Above us, boots struck stone. A man shouted. Another shouted back. Something heavy moved across the floor of the church. Sorines looked toward the broken door, then back at me. "Your name," she said. I could barely hear her. "What?" "Your name. Remember it inside, not with your mouth. Inside." I did not know why. I know now. Names are easy to steal when frightened children shout them at armed men. Behind Sorines came two men in dark coats, and behind them, an old woman with keys hanging from her belt. I had seen the old woman twice before. Never above, only below. Her back was bent, but everyone moved when she entered. Even the priest had moved for her. That taught me something. Power does not always stand tall. Sometimes it smells like lamp oil and old wool. "Move them," the old woman said. Sorines stepped in front of us. "They are children. They are inventory." The word went through me before I understood it. Inventory. Not prisoners. Not souls. Not even sinners. Inventory. The old woman looked at me. Her eyes were pale and wet. "Not that one," she said. One of the men hesitated. "He's the marked one. I know what he is." Above us, the boots grew louder. A soldier's voice came down through the stones. "There is another door." The old woman turned toward the men. "Then why are you still standing here?" They moved quickly after that. They tied our hands. Not too tight. Sorines saw to that. Small mercy again. There are people who cannot stop the machine. So they loosen the rope. Do not make the mistake of calling death nothing. It is not enough. But it is not nothing. They took us through the corridor, past the lamp, past the cross, past the rooms where children slept without dreams. At the end was a wall I had thought was only a wall. The old woman pressed her thumb against a stone. Something clicked. The wall opened. Cold air crawled through. Not clean air. Wet air. Old air. A hidden passage waited behind the church like a throat. Before they pushed us inside, I looked back. Sor Inés was still there. She was watching me. I wanted to ask if anyone from my house still breathed. I did not. Some questions are doors. Some doors should not be opened by children. Then I heard it. A voice from above. A soldier. Check below. Below. The word lit something in me. They knew. They were coming down. I pulled away from the man holding me. He cursed. I twisted. My shoulder slipped. For one heartbeat, I was free. I ran. Not far. Children never run far in places built by adults who expect them to try. The man caught me near the broken room. His hand closed around the back of my collar. I saw Father Tomas on the floor. I saw the little knife on the desk. I saw the spilled water drying in the shape of a dark hand. Then the old woman struck the man across the arm with her keys. Not rough, she snapped. Do you want him damaged? Damaged. That word stayed with me. Not hurt, not afraid. Damaged. That was when I began to understand that my survival did not belong to me either. They dragged me back to the passage. The children were already being pushed through. Marisol counted under her breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mateo had both hands over his ears. The boy with the scar watched me. Only once. Then he looked away. The old woman lifted her lantern. The flames shook and made the walls breathe. They pushed us into the dark. The air smelled of mud, mold, rat bones, and old water. The path sloped down. Somewhere nearby, water moved under stone. Behind us, the church roared with voices. A soldier shouted. A man screamed. A gun fired once, then twice. The children flinched. Mateo began crying without sound. Marisol counted. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I tried to count with her. I could not. My mind was full of one question. Why me? Why me? Why me? At the end of the passage, gray light appeared. Real light. Not candle. Not lamp. Morning. It hurt my eyes. We came out behind the collapsed wall near a dry wash. Mules waited there. A covered cart waited with them. 2 men stood beside it. Neither wore priest clothes. Neither wore soldier clothes. That scared me more. A soldier is at least honest about the weapon. One of the men lifted Mateo into the cart. Another grabbed Marisol. I saw open ground beyond them. Mesquite. Dust. A road. No wall. No door. No priest. I ran again. This time, I made it farther. 3 steps. 4. 5. A soldier on the ridge turned and saw me. Our eyes met. He was young. Too young to have learned what not to see. "Boy," he shouted. Hope hit me so hard I nearly fell. The golden-eyed man caught me from behind. His arm closed around my chest. I screamed. The soldier began running down the slope. The old woman pulled a small clay ampoule from her sleeve and threw it at the ground. It broke. Black dust burst into the air. The soldier coughed, stumbled, covered his face. Not smoke, not poison, something older and meaner. Ash, lime, crushed pepper, and little prayers said backward. The golden-eyed man held me as I fought. "You are not for them," he said. I bit his hand. He looked down at the blood, then at me. For the first time, he smiled with something like approval. "There he is." He threw me into the cart. Not gently, not cruelly, efficiently. The other children were already inside. Marisol held Mateo against her shoulder. The nameless boy with the scar watched the opening in the canvas and said nothing. The cart began to move. Wheels again. Not the same carriage, not the same road, but the sound knew me. Clack, groan, clack, groan. I crawled to the back and looked through a tear in the canvas. The church was behind us now, small in the morning light. White walls, bell tower, cross, ordinary. That was the ugliest thing about it. From far away, it looked innocent. I looked for Sorines. I saw her once, only once, standing near the broken wall. Her hands folded in front of her, her veil moving in the wind. Then the cart turned, and she was gone. Marisol whispered beside me, "What is your name?" I opened my mouth. Sorines's voice came back. "Remember it inside, not with your mouth. Inside." So I closed my mouth. I kept my name behind my teeth. I kept my family in my throat. I kept my house in the place where breathing hurt. Behind us, Mexico searched for traitors. Ahead of us, the devils moved their children before daylight could count them. And I, small fool that I was, still believed someone was coming. For years, mis chacales. For years, I believed that.
Otros nacen en la herida.